Every once in a while, I experience sleep paralysis. During these episodes, I'm half awake, but unable to move for a while until I suddenly jolt fully awake after an unknown period of time. It's usually just a mild annoyance, nothing to be concerned about, although when I experience sleep paralysis, I usually do feel incredibly panicked and anxious, despite knowing what's going on. I've found that what usually causes the sleep paralysis is the position I sleep in. If I lie flat on my back with my arms at my side and my legs flat, I can avoid the sleep paralysis. However, if I sleep in a way that causes my limbs to be trapped underneath my body, I'm much more likely to experience sleep paralysis. When my mind wakes up and my body is paralyzed, I can't move, but I try to anyway. My mind tells me that I have to try and move one of my arms. It's like an instinct. At this point, I can, with extreme effort, slowly and sluggishly move my arm. It's as if there's a huge weight placed on top of my entire arm that doesn't completely prevent me from moving it, but makes it very difficult. After a while, my arm is able to break free of whatever's trapping it, and the sleep paralysis ends. Well, I'm not actually sure if this is exactly how it happens. I'm not certain if my arm breaking free is what allows my sleep paralysis to end, or if my sleep paralysis suddenly ending allows my arm to break free from the imaginary weight keeping it pinned down. Sometimes, I'm unable to even move my arms, so I just breathe in and out as heavily and loudly as I can, in the hopes that I will be able to make a sound, and hoping that even if my voice doesn't come out, somebody will hear my loud breathing and free me. Some people are able to open their eyes and see imaginary shadow figures at the foot of their bed, but not me. When I experience sleep paralysis, I'm not even able to open my eyes, except for that one time years ago. In that strange instance, I was once again paralyzed. My mind was awake, but I couldn't move my body, but for some reason, I could open my eyes. This was the only time I had ever been able to open my eyes during sleep paralysis. I looked over to the door of my room, and a tall figure walked in. My mind told me that he was my grandfather, even though he looked nothing like my grandfather. This figure had an extremely tall head, his forehead jutting upwards making his head far taller than that of a normal person. He slowly approached my bed and knelt next to me. My mind knew that he wasn't a malicious being, and I'm not exactly sure why I thought that. Even though my sleep paralysis causes me to feel panicked and anxious, this time I felt strangely calm. As he knelt, a bright white light started emanating from him, and I was freed from my sleep paralysis. Looking back, I'm not sure if that really was sleep paralysis, or if I was simply having a strange dream in which I experienced sleep paralysis. I remember I had that experience after I had already woken up in the night and fallen back asleep. When that happens, my dreams after I fall back asleep tend to take place in real-life locations, in more realistic situations. Instead of having a dream in which I'm walking through a never-ending, imaginary airport filled with toy train stores that don't really exist, that transitions into a lost Super Mario 64 level that takes place inside of an imaginary, polygonal man's mouth, I would have a dream about doing poorly on a very real exam that I forgot to study for since I thought I had already taken the exam. Maybe this sleep paralysis episode with the tall-headed man who was supposed to be my grandfather and, looking back, kind of resembled Ki-Adi-Mundi from the Star Wars prequels, was just a dream and not a real sleep paralysis episode. Or perhaps it was just an incredibly strange and abnormal sleep paralysis experience. This happened years ago, but I remember very distinctly not being frightened at all, and even feeling thankful to the tall-headed figure for helping free me from my sleep paralysis. I didn't have to move my arms. I didn't have to breathe heavily. I just lied there and stared at the man until he knelt next to me, emitted light from himself, and allowed me to move once again. I always try to sleep in a way that ensures I don't experience sleep paralysis, but sometimes I move around in my sleep and wiggle into a position that makes sleep paralysis happen. I'm very thankful that apart from that one time, I'm unable to open my eyes when I'm paralyzed. I'm also very thankful that I don't experience any auditory hallucinations when I'm paralyzed. And I feel so lucky that the one time I opened my eyes and experienced a visual hallucination during sleep paralysis, the being I saw seemed to be benevolent and helped me out of my sleep paralysis. If you don't experience sleep paralysis, consider yourself lucky. It's a terrible, anxiety-inducing experience that traps you, leaving you wondering if it'll ever end. Of course it does end eventually, But when you're paralyzed like that, you lose your sense of time and seconds feel like an eternity. It's a shame that the tall-headed man can't help all of us out when we experience sleep paralysis. If he showed up more often, maybe I wouldn't feel so panicked when sleep paralysis occurs.